You ever wonder why some people seem to have it all together, crushing their goals, staying focused, making progress every single day, while others stay stuck, making the same excuses over and over? It's not luck, it's not talent, it's habits. Tiny, seemingly insignificant choices that stack up over time and either move you closer to the life you want or keep you exactly where you are. Most people think success comes from one big breakthrough, but that's a lie. The real secret, it's what you do daily, the small, consistent habits that shape your mindset, your actions, and ultimately your results. And here's the kicker. These habits aren't about motivation. Motivation fades. Discipline, that's unreliable too. But habits, they run on autopilot. They remove the guesswork. They align who you are with where you want to be. So today, we're going to break it down. How small, consistent habits can rewire your brain, shift your mindset, and create unstoppable momentum in your life. Because if you want to change your future, it starts with what you do today. Right now, let's go. You wake up every morning with a choice. You can hit snooze, roll over, and let the day dictate how you feel. Or you can take control, set the tone, and move with intention. This isn't about being perfect. It's about deciding every single day that you are in charge of how you show up. And the easiest way to do that? Your habits. The little things you do without even thinking. The choices that seem small, but are actually shaping your entire life. Most people don't realize this, but your brain is wired for efficiency. It loves shortcuts. That's why habits are so powerful. When you repeat an action enough times, your brain stops debating whether or not to do it. It just does. It becomes automatic. That's why someone who works out every day doesn't have to force themselves to exercise. It's just part of who they are. The same goes for reading, journaling, eating healthy, waking up early, or practicing gratitude. These things don't require constant motivation because they've been built into their routine. But here's the problem. This works both ways. If you've trained yourself to procrastinate, to scroll mindlessly on your phone, to overthink instead of taking action, those habits become just as automatic. And suddenly, without realizing it, you've built a system that keeps you stuck. That's why breaking bad habits feels hard. It's not about willpower. It's about rewiring the automatic programming that's been running your life. The good news? You can change it. You can decide starting right now to reprogram your habits to align with the life you actually want. And the best part? It doesn't take massive action. It takes small, consistent changes, the kind that feel almost too easy at first. Because the truth is, success isn't about doing one big thing once. It's about doing the small things over and over until they become second nature. Let's talk about momentum. Most people wait until they feel motivated to start something new. But motivation is unreliable. It's fleeting. It comes and goes. If you only take action when you feel like it, you'll never be consistent. But momentum? That's different. It builds with action. The more you do something, the easier it gets. Think about it. When you start working out after months of doing nothing, the first few days are brutal. But after a couple of weeks, you don't have to push yourself as hard. It becomes part of your identity. That's why the key to building better habits isn't about forcing yourself into massive lifestyle changes overnight. It's about starting ridiculously small. Want to read more? Start with 1 page a day. Want to get in shape? Do 5 push-ups. Want to build confidence? Start by making eye contact with one person. It sounds almost too simple, but that's the point. The easier it is to start, the harder it is to quit. And here's where most people get it wrong. They overcomplicate it. They set massive goals and expect to see instant results. When that doesn't happen, they give up. But real change isn't flashy. It's not about big leaps. It's about micro shifts repeated daily that create a ripple effect in every area of your life. The person who writes one sentence a day is still writing more than the person who waits for the perfect time to start their book. The person who saves $1 a day is still in a better position than the person who never starts saving at all. This is where mindset comes in, because if you believe that success is only for people with superhuman discipline, you'll never even try. But if you understand that it's about habits that anyone can build, you take back your power. You stop seeing yourself as someone who just isn't disciplined or just isn't lucky, and start realizing that discipline isn't a personality trait. It's a muscle. And just like any other muscle, it gets stronger the more you use it. Now let's talk about alignment, because habits aren't just about what you do, they shape how you think. When you consistently show up for yourself, even in small ways, you start to see yourself differently. You start to trust yourself. You become the kind of person who follows through. And that shift, that's everything. Because once your identity aligns with your actions, everything else gets easier. You no longer have to fight with yourself to stay consistent. You just do it because that's who you are. And this doesn't just apply to work or fitness. It applies to everything, your relationships, your mindset, your emotional resilience. If you want to be more positive, start by catching yourself when you complain and flipping the script. If you want better relationships, build the habit of expressing gratitude instead of focusing on what's missing. If you want to be more confident, practice showing up even when you're scared. Most people underestimate the power of small changes because they don't see immediate results, but success compounds. The person who meditates for 2 minutes a day doesn't notice a massive shift on day 1, but give it a month and their stress levels have dropped. The person who swaps soda for water doesn't lose weight overnight, but give it a year and their energy levels have transformed. And here's the part no one talks about. There's no finish line. You don't arrive at success and suddenly have everything figured out. But you do become someone who knows how to keep moving forward, who knows how to adjust, who knows that setbacks don't define them. Because once you master the habit of showing up, nothing can stop you. Most people think they need a perfect plan before they can take action. They waste time researching, overanalyzing, waiting for the right moment. But here's the truth. There is no perfect moment. There is no perfect plan. The only way to create progress is to start, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect. Action creates clarity. Action creates momentum. And the smallest step in the right direction is always better than standing still. Think about any big goal you've ever had. Maybe it was getting in shape, starting a business, improving your mindset. Did it happen all at once? No, it happened through the small daily choices that added up over time. The problem is most people quit before they see the results. They assume it's not working because they don't get instant gratification. But success isn't about seeing results immediately. It's about trusting the process and sticking with it long enough for those results to show. That's why consistency matters more than intensity. Anybody can go to the gym once and work out like crazy, but the person who does a simple 20-minute workout every day will get further than the person who burns out after one extreme session. Anybody can eat healthy for a week, but the person who makes one small sustainable change at a time will build lasting habits. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. And here's the thing, your habits are always working, whether you realize it or not. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. If you scroll on your phone the second you wake up, you're casting a vote for distraction. If you hit snooze over and over, you're casting a vote for procrastination. But if you start your morning with one intentional habit, even something as simple as making your bed, you're casting a vote for discipline. Small actions might not feel like they matter in the moment, but over time, they create an identity shift. You stop being someone who tries to be productive and become someone who naturally gets things done. You stop being someone who wants to be confident and become someone who believes in themselves. Your brain begins to associate certain actions with your identity, and that's when real change happens. Most people try to force their way into a better life with willpower alone. But willpower is unreliable. It fades when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. Habits, on the other hand, remove the need for willpower. They make success automatic. And the easiest way to build a new habit is by attaching it to something you already do. If you want to read more, keep a book next to your coffee maker and read one page while your coffee brews. If you want to get stronger, do 5 push-ups before you shower. If you want to drink more water, take a sip every time you check your phone. The key is making the habit so small that it's impossible to fail. People don't fail because their goals are too small. They fail because they set goals that are too big, too fast. They go from never running to thinking they need to run 5 miles a day. They go from never writing to thinking they need to write a book in a month. When that doesn't happen, they give up. But the people who succeed, they start small and let the habit grow naturally. Momentum is your best friend. The more you take action, the more confident you become. Confidence isn't something you wait for, it's something you build. Every time you show up, even in a small way, you prove to yourself that you are capable. And once you start seeing yourself differently, everything changes. You stop making excuses, you stop waiting for permission, you start taking responsibility for your life. And responsibility is everything. Because at the end of the day, no one is coming to save you. No one is going to do the work for you. You either take control of your habits or your habits take control of you. You either design a life that moves you forward or you stay stuck repeating the same patterns. The choice is yours. There's a reason why successful people talk about their morning routines, their workout habits, their reading habits. It's not because these things are magic, it's because they create structure. And structure creates freedom. When your habits are aligned with your goals, you don't have to waste energy deciding what to do next. You don't have to fight yourself to stay on track. You just do it because it's part of who you are. And this is where most people get stuck. They think they need motivation, but motivation is a trap. It's unreliable. The people who succeed aren't more motivated than you. They've just built systems that keep them moving even when they don't feel like it. They don't wait to feel like working out. They have a habit of showing up. They don't wait to feel like working on their goals. They've trained themselves to take action regardless of how they feel. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do is create a habit of starting, not finishing, just starting. Tell yourself you only have to do the first 2 minutes, because once you start, you're more likely to keep going. The hardest part of any task is the beginning, but when you make starting a habit, you eliminate the resistance that holds most people back. And it's not just about productivity, it's about how you live your life. Your habits shape your mindset. If you constantly complain, your brain becomes wired to focus on problems. If you practice gratitude, your brain becomes wired to focus on opportunities. If you avoid discomfort, you train yourself to fear challenges. If you push through small discomforts daily, you build mental toughness that carries over into everything you do. Success isn't about luck, it's about patterns. The people who achieve great things aren't necessarily smarter, luckier, or more talented. They just have better habits. They have habits that align their actions with their goals, and they stick with them long enough to see results. And the best part? You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to overhaul your life in one giant leap. You just have to take one small step today, and then another tomorrow, and another the next day. Because when you commit to small, consistent habits, you're not just changing your actions, you're changing who you are. Every decision you make, no matter how small, is shaping your future. The way you spend your mornings, the way you react to challenges, the way you talk to yourself in moments of doubt, it all adds up. And the scary part? Most people don't even realize they're making these decisions. They're running on autopilot, repeating the same behaviors every day without thinking about where those behaviors are leading them. That's why awareness is the first step. You can't change a habit if you don't even notice it. If you've been telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow, that's a habit. If you constantly put off uncomfortable tasks, that's a habit. If you talk yourself out of opportunities because you don't feel ready, that's a habit. But the moment you become aware of these patterns, you take back control. You stop living reactively and start making choices that align with the person you want to become. The best way to do this? Track your habits, write them down, pay attention to the small actions you take throughout the day. You don't need a complicated system. Just start noticing. Are you constantly reaching for your phone instead of doing the work that actually matters? Are you skipping the healthy choice because it feels easier in the moment? Are you avoiding conversations that could help you grow because they feel uncomfortable? These tiny choices might seem harmless, but they're either reinforcing your progress or keeping you stuck. Your habits should be designed for the life you want, not the life you're trying to escape. If your goal is to build a business, your daily habits should reflect that. If your goal is to improve your health, your habits should move you in that direction. And here's the real test. If you kept living the exact same way you are right now, where would you be a year from now? If your answer doesn't excite you, it's time to make a change. This is where most people hesitate. They tell themselves they'll start when they feel ready, but ready never comes. Waiting for the perfect moment is just another form of procrastination. If you want to build better habits, you have to start before you feel prepared. You have to take action before you know all the answers, because action leads to progress, and progress leads to confidence. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through repetition. Think about any skill you've ever developed. At first, you weren't good at it. You had to practice. You had to push through the discomfort. The same applies to discipline, focus, and self-belief. Every time you follow through on a commitment to yourself, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you take action, even when it's uncomfortable, you prove to yourself that you can. But if you constantly break promises to yourself, you do the opposite. You teach your brain that you can't be trusted. You reinforce the identity of someone who quits. And the longer you stay in that cycle, the harder it is to break. That's why the most important habit you can build is keeping your word to yourself. Start small. If you say you're going to work out, do it. Even if it's just for 5 minutes. If you say you're going to wake up early, get up when your alarm goes off. These small moments matter more than you think because they're shaping the way you see yourself. Self-discipline isn't about making life harder. It's about making life easier in the long run. When you build habits that support your goals, you eliminate the daily struggle of trying to find motivation. You stop fighting with yourself to do what needs to be done. You just do it because it's part of who you are. And this doesn't mean you'll always feel like it. There will be days when you don't want to show up. Days when your mind tells you to take it easy, to skip it, to do it later. But that's the moment you need to push through, because every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you reinforce the habit of resilience. You strengthen the identity of someone who takes action no matter what. And that identity is what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. Most people assume successful people have some kind of secret advantage. They don't. They've just mastered the art of consistency. They've built habits that keep them moving even on the days when motivation is gone. And the truth is, you can do the same. You don't need more talent. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You just need to take the first step and then another and then another. Because at the end of the day, it's not about what you say you want. It's about what you do consistently. Your life right now is a reflection of your habits. If you want to change where you're headed, change what you do every day. Most people don't struggle because they lack ambition. They struggle because they don't have systems in place to support their ambition. It's not enough to want something. You need a process to make it inevitable. That process starts with habits. Habits dictate your default behaviors, and your default behaviors determine your results. If your daily habits align with your goals, success is just a matter of time. If they don't, you'll always feel like you're working against yourself. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking they need massive action to see progress. They assume that if they're not making a dramatic change, it's not worth doing. But real transformation happens through small, consistent actions. It's not about going all in for a week and then burning out. It's about doing something small every day that moves you forward. One push-up is better than none. Writing one sentence is better than waiting for the perfect time to write a whole chapter. Saving $1 is better than waiting until you have extra money to start saving. Small habits compound over time. Think about a plane taking off from Los Angeles and heading to New York. If the nose of the plane shifts just a few degrees in the wrong direction, it won't land in New York. It'll end up in a completely different state. The same thing happens with your habits. A small shift in the wrong direction might not seem like a big deal today, but over time, it can take you somewhere you never intended to be. The problem is that most people don't notice when they're drifting. They don't recognize how small choices add up. They tell themselves, it's just one day or it's just one time, without realizing that one time repeated often enough becomes a pattern. One day of skipping your workout turns into a week. One night of staying up late turns into a habit of exhaustion. One decision to procrastinate turns into months of lost progress. This is why self-awareness is critical. You have to be honest with yourself about the habits that are shaping your life. What do you do when you're bored? What do you do when you're stressed? What do you do when no one is watching? These moments reveal the habits that are truly running your life. If you don't like the answers, it's time to change them. But change doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the small moments where you choose differently. It happens when you decide to take a 5-minute walk instead of sitting on the couch, when you choose to read a book instead of scrolling through social media, when you do the uncomfortable task instead of putting it off. These small moments might not seem significant, but over time they rewire your brain. They shift your identity. They make you someone who takes action instead of waiting. That's the real power of habits. They don't just change your actions, they change the way you see yourself. If you consistently work out, you stop thinking of yourself as someone who tries to be healthy and start identifying as someone who takes care of their body. If you consistently follow through on commitments, you stop seeing yourself as someone who struggles with discipline and start believing that you are reliable. Your habits create your identity, and your identity reinforces your habits. But if you're not intentional, the opposite happens. If you constantly tell yourself that you're lazy, that you lack discipline, that you never follow through, those thoughts become part of your identity. And when something becomes part of your identity, you act in ways that reinforce it. That's why changing your habits starts with changing the way you talk to yourself. Instead of saying, I'm bad at waking up early, say, I'm learning to wake up early. And instead of saying, I can't stick to a routine, say, I'm becoming the kind of person who follows through. The words you use shape your reality. Most people think that motivation is the key to success, but the truth is, motivation is overrated. The people who succeed aren't the ones who feel motivated all the time. They're the ones who show up even when they don't feel like it. They're the ones who have trained themselves to take action no matter what. That's why discipline is so powerful. It removes the need to decide. When something is a habit, you don't negotiate with yourself about whether to do it, you just do it. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wake up every morning and ask yourself if you feel like brushing your teeth. You don't debate whether or not it's worth doing. You just do it because it's a habit. Imagine if working on your goals felt that automatic. Imagine if taking care of your health, staying disciplined, and making progress didn't require motivation because they were simply part of your routine. That's the level you need to reach. The best way to make a habit automatic is to make it easy. If something feels overwhelming, you'll put it off, but if it feels effortless, you'll do it without thinking. Want to start exercising? Instead of planning an intense hour-long workout, commit to 5 minutes. Want to start reading more? Commit to 1 page a day. The key is to make it so small that you have no excuse not to do it. The mistake most people make is starting too big. They try to change everything at once, and when they can't sustain it, they quit. But the people who succeed, they start small and build momentum. They don't try to overhaul their entire life in one day. They just focus on doing one thing right, and then another, and then another. Over time, those small wins add up to massive results. Success is built in the moments when no one is watching. It's built in the choices you make when it would be easier to quit. It's built in the discipline to keep going even when progress feels slow. The people who succeed aren't necessarily the most talented, they're just the ones who refuse to stop. And the easiest way to make sure you don't stop? Build habits that make success inevitable. At the end of the day, your success isn't determined by luck, talent, or motivation. It's determined by the habits you build. Every small action you take is shaping your future, whether you realize it or not. The choice is yours. You can let your habits run on autopilot and keep repeating the same cycles, or you can take control and build the habits that align with your goals. And it won't happen overnight, and it won't always be easy, but if you commit to small, consistent actions, your progress will be unstoppable. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop relying on motivation. Start with one small habit today. Because the moment you decide to take action, you shift from being someone who hopes for change to someone who makes it happen. And that shift right there is what separates the people who succeed from the people who stay stuck.